Hello, everyone. This is Tammy Fisher with In the Doll World, and I'm here today with my beautiful co-host, Miss Georgette Taylor.
Hey, everybody.
Miss Georgette. And today we're really excited to introduce you to Miss Akari Shigeta of VOLKS Doll Company. Akari is the director of the doll department, and she is also the daughter of Mr. Hida Yuki Shigeta, who is the president of the company. He's the president and founder. So thank you, Akari, for joining us today.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome. Thank you.
Konnichiwa.
Thank you.
For having
And
me.
thank you. And Akari is accompanied by her wonderful translator, Miss Anne. Hello there. So you were talking about the doll comes home. It's like you come home.
Yes.
And there is a ceremony that I saw, and I'm wondering how the ceremony fits into this. And the ceremony, sorry if I say it incorrectly, but from what I read, people can, if they buy a doll while they are there at your factory or at an event, there is an Omukae ceremony.
Yes.
Can you please tell us about that? I saw a picture, but I don't understand what that is.
So yes, when you brought up the Omukae ceremony, that word Omukae is the Japanese word I was describing earlier of welcoming. And so this, I'll just say welcoming ceremony. This welcoming ceremony is actually a special service that we offer for free for owners of Super Dollfie. And it takes place here in Kyoto, Japan. We're actually in Kyoto, Japan right now. But Kyoto, I'm not sure if you know, it's the ancient capital of Japan, and it's known for being a very traditional place with many traditional workmanship and a lot of traditional Japanese culture and traditional Japanese arts. And it just so happens that my mother and father started their business here in Kyoto, and they're from here in Kyoto. So we decided to really place a spotlight here on Kyoto, Japan. And around 20 years ago, when we started making these dolls, we decided that we would designate Kyoto, Japan as being sort of the official birthplace of these Super Dollfie dolls. And we also have our workshop and studio here in Kyoto as well. So it is where these dolls come from. And more and more, we started being asked by owners, or owners were wondering, where does my doll come from? Where was my doll born? Wanting to know that story. So around 18 years ago.
開業してからは17年だけど、実際美術館があるのは18年。
So it was officially opened up around 17 years ago, but it was established around 18 years ago. We started Tenshi-no-Sato. So Tenshi-no-Sato literally means the birthplace of angels. So this is a doll museum that we set up here in Kyoto for our customers who own Super Dollfie dolls, so that they could come, they could bring their doll and come to this place, and we call it Sato Gairi, which in Japanese is returning home or returning to your home place or your hometown. And so to offer this place for owners to come to bring their doll to return to the doll's hometown or its birthplace. And within the Tenshi-no-Sato, in addition to having the doll museum, we also have a special part that is dedicated especially for the welcoming ceremony, the Omukae ceremony. And there's a very special, I don't know how to translate, but it's sort of like a shrine, like a sort of like this spiritual place, this shrine, where we have the mother SD, and we also have a place where that you can lie your Super Dollfie, and our staff do a special ceremony to celebrate the birth of your Super Dollfie, and the fact that the moment that you welcomed this Super Dollfie, that was when it entered your life and it became part of your life, and also when its life began. So it's sort of this birthday celebration, this birth celebration, and welcoming celebration that we have. And there's a ceremony where you say your wishes, your prayers, and the staff celebrate, clap, and surrounding. It's within the doll museum area, so there are other customers as well who also celebrate along to say, oh, congratulations. And it's really this moment to really for the person who has welcomed this doll or owns this doll to really visualize or understand that this doll has been born and is part of their lives. And there's a moment where they actually blow out these candles,
Wow.
these candles to sort of celebrate the birth and to celebrate that just as you put out your breath of life, you're putting that life into your Super Dollfie, and it's now part of your life and your your lifestyle going forward. So it's a very, very special ceremony that we have here in Kyoto.
That's
So
beautiful.
that
That's
is
really
beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah. I know a little bit about Kyoto. My son lives in Japan, and so he lived in Kyoto first. And that's why he liked it, because of the history of it. And he thought it was just so beautiful. He's moved to Yokohama since then, but yeah, he loves it there. But he loved being in Kyoto though. He really did. Thought it was an amazing place. Yeah.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the ceremony. So when you do the ceremony, do you do, like, if 10 people come in with dolls, do you do one ceremony for those 10 people together, or do you do 10 individual ceremonies?
お客様のご希望によります。ミュージアムは、週末に、主に空いているので、その週末の営業時間内に、セレモニーのご予約をいただいて、お客様によってはグループでセレモニーを希望される方もおられますし、お一人で、希望される方もおられますし、その時々によって対応しています。でセレモニーのは基本的にはすべてサービスですので無料なんですけど、セレモニーを終わられた後、お客様と高輪台と一緒にお写真を撮って、その写真をメッセージカードにしてお客様のご自宅にお届けするというサービスも思い出ということで行っています。
So it really depends on the wishes of the customer. The doll museum is mostly open on weekends. So they make a reservation in advance for this ceremony. And some people do want to have it be done in a group. Some people want to have it be done just by themselves. So it really depends on their request and what they say when they make their reservation. And while the ceremony itself is offered as a free service, we also do have an optional service where we can take a commemorative photograph of their doll with the Mother SD shrine and have that be sent to them as sort of like a memorial postcard or commemorative postcard that they can choose if they would like.
That's
Wow,
great.
that's really nice.
Lovely.
Yeah, that is really lovely.
And is that, I mean, if I bought a doll 10 years ago, can I come there? I mean, oh, so you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a recent purchase. That is lovely.
Of course.
宗教が京都に来られたときに、彼女のスーパードルフィーでお迎えセレモニーを私もいましたし、父と母もすべていてセレモニーを一度開いたことがあります。
Yes, and actually, the editor of Fashion Dolls Quarterly, Pat, when she came to Kyoto, she brought her SD, and we had this welcoming ceremony. And my mother and father were present. I was there as well, and we had a welcoming ceremony for Super Dollfie at that time.
That's really nice. I love it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that when I come to Japan.
Definitely.
I'm trying to come in April of next year to see my son, and so I may think about doing that. That'd be so nice.
It sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. Yeah. And so it's been interesting to see how your culture is part of your company and your history is part of your company. And so one of the questions that I have is, for many of us who are outside of Japan, we see Japan as a place where people are like very into education and a more serious place. In America, there's a lot of play that happens. So my question is, you make these beautiful dolls and toys. Do children play a lot in Japan? Because that just is not what we envision when we think of Japan.
もちろん日本の子どもたちも遊びますし、元気に外を駆け回ったりしますけど、 私個人的に、高校卒業して大学、英語学校と大学の6年間をアメリカで過ごした経験があるので、日本の教育とアメリカの教育、子どもたちに接する、何を教えてるかっていう違いを自分的に経験したことがあるので、その経験から少し違いをお伝えすると、日本では小さな子供の時からやっぱり小さなコミュニティで育っていきますから、その中で子供に感謝をして生きること、それから丁寧に生きること、それから年長者を敬うこと、細かなそういった礼儀であるとか、親切にするとか、そういったことを勉強とは別に教えられます。で、例えば自分で自分の部屋を片付けるということや、年長者には敬語を話す、ものを投げない、お金を投げない、それから、足、家に入るとき靴を脱ぐのはもちろんですけど、足を机の上に上げない、椅子の上に上げない、そういった礼儀を細かく小さなこと、子供の時から教えます。で、その中で自分が小さなコミュニティ、島国ですから、小さなコミュニティの中で自分の自身の場所、ポジションを見つけて、調和を持って日本人として成長していくということを学ぶんだと。一方、アメリカは、私が高校卒業してアメリカに行った当時ですから、もうずいぶん前ですね、20もうちょっと前かな、なんですけど、当時感じたのは、もう子供の良いところを伸ばす、子供の自由にさせてあげる。だから嫌いなものは食べなくてもいいし、年齢差を感じなく、男女差感じなく、自分のことを表現すればいい。好きな時に好きなように自分自身の言葉で自分を自己アピールすればいい。だから日本にいた時に年長者には敬語、それなりの言葉遣いをしなさいということと、アメリカに行って自分の意見を誰の前でもしっかり言いなさいという真逆のことでした。だから子供の時から違う文化、違う歴史的背景、それから違うコミュニティの中でどのように育って、どのような大人になっていくのかというのが異なるだけで、その中での遊びとか学びとかというのが大きく違っていく。だから日本は日本なりのしつけや教育、それから遊びがあって、アメリカにはアメリカなりのしつけや教育、遊びがあるのかな。よし悪しじゃなくて、文化的、歴史的、それからあと、やはりコミュニティの大きさの違いかな。
So, just going off of my own personal experience and what I have seen, because as I mentioned earlier, I did go to the United States for college as well. I also went for 1 year for an English school, so I was there for about 6 years in total. And while I was there in the United States, I did, as you point out, I did notice some differences between Japanese culture versus American culture. And just to reply to one part of your question, do Japanese children play? I want to say absolutely yes. You know, Japanese children also play around, they run around, and, you know, in the same way that all children worldwide play. But I do think that it is very different. You mentioned education, and I do think that that is a vital aspect, where there is a type of education that happens outside of, you know, school work, school learning. It's a different type of education, and it involves, in Japan, you know, from a very, you know, very, very young age, when you're very small, you learn that you exist within this small community. I mean, we are an island country, and we're made up of these, you know, small communities, and you're raised within a small community, and you're taught from a young age where your position is in that community, and, you know, that you have to be, you know, grateful, that you have to be polite, that you have to be respectful to your elders, that you have to be kind, you have to be thoughtful, and even, you know, just the more, you know, little things like, you know, you must take your shoes off when you enter the home, and you can't put your feet up on the desk, or, you know, put your feet in the air. You know, there's all these little things that are taught outside of schoolwork that are really ingrained at a young age into Japanese children, and that's how they learn as they're growing up, you know, who they are and what their position, who they are in terms of what their position is within the community. In Japanese as well, we have a different way of speaking to elders, or there's a polite form of speech that you learn from a young age, that you have to use the polite form of speech
Right.
speaking to your elders or your superiors. Whereas when I went to America, something that I really noticed was that, well, of course, when I went to the US, I'm going to reveal my age here, but it was more than 20 years ago. It was a little while ago. But at that time, what I noticed is that American culture really brings out the best parts of children. It really utilizes or emphasizes that wonderful qualities that children have, that freedom that they have, that expressiveness that they have. And it also gives them a type of freedom where, you know, if they hate this food, they don't have to eat it. Or if they feel proud of something they did, they can brag about it. And I really felt that there was a difference in that culture. And I don't want to say that either is good or bad, just that it's different. And because of that, education, it does influence what the child will grow up doing and how they'll play. And something I noticed with the children in the US as well is that they didn't feel so restricted by, you know, male, female, age, you know, these sort of categories that you fall into. They felt more free to express their opinions, and that then translates into adults as well. And something that I struggled with was that in Japan, I always had to be, you know, very polite and respectful and conscious of, you know, my elders and my superiors. But then when I go to college in the United States, I'm being told that I have to express my opinion clearly, and it has to be my personal opinion. And so that was just so radically different than anything that I had been taught before. So I definitely agree that play and education are very different in the United States. But again, I want to emphasize that I think they both have wonderful qualities, and I think that they both really work well within the culture of each country. And I'm glad that I got to see both of those cultures in my life.
Yeah, that's
a
great.
great answer.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah.
To see
And-
both sides to that, you know, and
Yes.
take the good, you know, from both sides. So yeah, that's great.
I even see with us, like with my children. So my oldest is, well, both of my children are about 20. So when I see my children and the way they were raised in their generation, it was very different than my generation.
Yeah.
And just like you said, there are certain ways of speaking to elders and that kind of thing. I have seen a major shift in that from my generation to my children's generation. They are, and like you said, they're the pros and cons, you know, but they are much more, I think they are more creative. They are more understanding of themselves as individuals. I think that there are some great things that have come, and I think that it is difficult as someone's mother, you know, to you meet these kids and they call you Tammy. It's like, no, I'm not your friend.
Right.
You know, so just
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying there. Yeah.
It's a totally different idea of how you you speak to people too, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, I mean, sometimes it's not as when we grew up. I mean, I'm I'm not going to tell my age, but I'm definitely older than all of you right here. But and my sons are like 30 and 39 and 29. So I even see the difference in both of their ages of what, you know, what I, you know, how I shared to have respect for people, you know, for the one who's 39 as opposed to the one who's 29. Not that they don't both have respect for them, but I think the younger one, just like Tammy was saying, I think their opinion, they voice their opinion much more than my older son. It took him longer to do that in a group of adults than it did for my younger son. So yeah, I think it is definitely the culture of that too. You know, having opinions and being able to, like you said, voice your opinion when you're in a space where that's not necessarily something that you would do on a regular basis. So yeah. I mean, yeah. But really, thank you for that. It really gave us a great opportunity to see your side of how you see both cultures, you know, and how you operate in both of those cultures. So
and I think it's really important because, of course, I know children play everywhere. Children, I mean, that's part of childhood. I don't think you can make a kid not play unless you like put them in a cage or something. And even if you put them in a cage, they would be doing something. Because that's what they do. So thank you for telling us about that, because there is this stereotype that I think it's true for both Japan and China, that it's like your kids go to school and they walk in a straight line and they wear a uniform and, you know, they're like little adults. So thank you for clearing that up. So I'm going to ask you one last question, and that is, you know, we've been dealing with COVID for over a year now. And I would like to know how COVID is impacting you as an individual and you as a member of the VOLKS family, like with your conventions and those kinds of things.
私自身は実はあんまり影響がなくて、私も私の家族も普段からあんまりお外に出ない。どっちかというと家族で家の中でもしくはお庭でペットで遊ぶっていうことが一番、ちょっと私の愛犬と遊ぶっていうのが一番の自分の癒しの時間なので、COVIDによって例えばどこかに出歩いたりとかお食事に行ったりとかそういったことが制限されるっていうことにあまり大きな影響はない。で、ボックスグループ自体も、今約400人ぐらいのスタッフがいますけど、誰一人 COVID にかかっていませんし、健康で実施していますので、個人的には何の影響はないです。ただ、会社はすごく大きく影響がありました。私たちは、年間3回から4回の大きなドールのイベント、ドールズパーティーを開催していまして、COVID の起こる前は、だいたい1万人弱ぐらいの、お客様がドールを連れて、東京ビッグサイトという大きなイベント会場に、世界中から集まってこられるというイベントを開催していました。で、もちろん、去年も2度東京で開催をするという予定をしてたんですが、それはキャンセルになりまして、12月に規模を縮小して、入場いただけるお客様を制限して行ったぐらいで、本当に今までのイベント開催の様相とは全く異なることになりました。その分、今私たちは、店舗、それからミュージアムだとか、日本全国にある13店舗かなの店舗を、細々とやりつつ、閉店したり、時間を短くしたりして、細々とやりつつ、オンラインでの商品の販売を力を入れる。
So just to answer the first part of your question, for me personally, to be honest with you, there was not much effect because to start with, me and actually my entire family, we tend to stay inside anyway. I mean, our favorite way to spend our free time is to stay at home with our family and or playing with our pets. I personally have a dog who I love very much. And for me, the ultimate, free time is spending time with him, playing around with him in our yard. So for us, there wasn't that much of, the loss in terms of no longer being able to go out to eat or, go out to do things. So in that respect, there was not much personal effect. And for our staff as well, we have about 400 employees at VOLKS Inc., but none of them have been infected. All of them are healthy and well. So in that sense, there wasn't really any effect. But when it comes to the company, obviously there's been a huge effect of the pandemic. As you mentioned, we do have these events. We tend to hold around 3 or 4 very large events, Dollfie events, every year. And for the ones that we hold in Tokyo at this huge convention called Big Site, we have around 10,000 people attending. So it's really huge events, and people would come from all over the world, flying internationally in to come to this event. So obviously that was no longer possible last year with the effects of the pandemic. We did try our best to hold the events, but it just was not possible. The only one that we were able to do was in October last year, December of last year, on a very smaller scale, limiting the number of customers that could come in. And so obviously in that way, it has had a very large effect on us. And yes, and we have around I have lots, oh yes, we have around 23 stores, physical shops. Yeah, no, I'm just, let me calm down for a moment. We have 13 numbers. I'm really sure that's numbers.
That's all right. That's all right. We appreciate what you're doing. We
I'm trying
appreciate it.
So we have
You're doing a great job.
stores around Japan, and we have been trying to keep those open. Of course, you know, there's been situations where we had to temporarily close or, you know, have reduced hours. So it is on, you know, sort of a smaller level than before the pandemic, but we're still trying to keep them going. At the same time, we also have sales online. We have our own VOLKS online store. And so we've been putting a lot of our focus and our time into really building up the online store and really optimizing the online store so that people can purchase that way as well.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Are you doing any virtual conventions?
コンベンションというのはやってないです。オンラインでの販売イベント、抽選会、それからプレゼント、あとは SNS を通じた、投稿、写真コンテストは行ってますが、ディーラーさんとかが、情報商品とか持ち寄って行うコンベンションというのでは行っています。
So we haven't held a convention per se online, you know, where we have, as we said, we have the handmade, the dealer, what we call the dealers, the people who make the handmade clothes and that sort of thing come together. We have not done that online, but we have done some event sales online. We have done lottery entries online, things that we normally do at the physical events. We have moved those online. We've also done, you know, special presents available through online application, as well as online photo contests where people can post photos on social media. So we have done those kinds of things online, but not really a convention per se.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's great that you're reaching out to your people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go, I know Tammy said that was the last person, but I did have one, and I know you're busy, and I know we're gonna let you go after this, and we appreciate you hanging with us and staying with us through all of this. But I wanted to go back to when we were talking about the articulation and the dolls and the ball jointed dolls. I don't know if we answered this question, but what I wanted to know is that since the dolls were so articulated, and you said that they had so many points of articulation, more than any dolls that were coming out back then, why did you decide to do ball jointed ones, and what was the reason for doing that? What did it give you? What did it allow you to do with the dolls, and why was that important for you to incorporate that when they were already very much articulated?
So I just want to.
Is that
I just want to be clear on the question. So are you asking her specifically about the ball joint as opposed to another type of joint? Okay, because I wasn't sure if that's what you were asking, or if you were just talking about just the points of articulation. Okay, okay. Thank you.
関節構造の話ですね。実は私たちのボークスとドルフィンはさまざまな関節構造を実は持っています。簡単にボールジョインティッドっていうと、肘にとか足に丸い球体があって、それを軸にこう関節が曲がるというシステムなんですけど、これを取り入れているのは、例えばこの小さなお人形とスーパーより大きくなった。この子たちはボールのジョインティッドを取り入れていますが、こっちのフレームが入っている子たち。これはボールジョイントではなくて、体の中に動くフレームが入っていて、それを軸に関節が動く。で、どうしてさまざまな関節構造を持ったかというと、まず一番最初にこの27センチを作った時には、最もシンプルな関節の、こう曲がるというのをロボットとか、当時、そのガレージキットとかプラモデルとかで使われているこの小さなジョイントを人形に組み込むということで、あまりこうロボットと人形の境目がなかったり、同じ技術を使って作られたので、小さな体の中に小さなジョイントを入れ込むということで、この子たちはボールジョイントが生まれました。で、この子た ちが生まれた後、レジンを使って大きくしたのがスーパードルフィーなんですが、この時に私たちが取り入れたのは、ずっと昔から、アンティークドール、そういったので取り入れられているテンションゴム、体の中にゴムを入れて、そのゴムでパーツとパーツをつなぐという手法を取り入れました。で、それは造形村の円久明弘が趣味で奥様に誕生日プレゼントで作ったドールがテンションゴムのドールだった。で、彼女も奥様もドールのコレクターだったので、一番扱いやすくて簡単にポーズが取れる。で、そんなに多く人間の体、人形の体の中にそんなに多い数じゃない、最低限のジョイントを使ったテンション、ゴムを使ってというのを好んだんですね。なので、円久が彼女のために作ったドールをがゴムでつなぐ包丁を切ると。で、私の母が彼女と話をしたときに、すごくそのドールを喜んでて、当時それはネットで作られてたんですけど、私の母が彼女のそのドールとその動き、その大きさ、その抱っこの加減を全部見て、円久さんにこれをレジンで作りましょう。だから小さかった時には関節一つ一つがジョイントで動いてたものが、大きくなった時に中にテンションゴムを入れてつなぐというふうに変わりました。これがスーパードルフィンの今につながっていて、これはどちらかといえば女性向き。簡単で、それから、最低限のジョイントの数。で、人間とほぼほぼ同じぐらい、それか少し人間よりも、少ない動き。で、ポージングもしやすい。というのがスーパードルフィン。で、その後誕生したのがドルフィードルフィン。で、こちらは、ちょっと外で。すみません。
Okay, I'm just gonna dive in before I forget. So this is a really complicated question actually that you've asked because while we tend to refer to our products overall as ball jointed dolls, or they're often referred to in that way, the truth is that there's actually a variety of different articulation mechanisms present in our various dolls. In the 27 centimeter dolls, we chose really the most simple way to move, which was those ball joints that we were thinking, to be honest, we were thinking in a more figure sort of way and more like a robot, really. So just like how we had always had our garage kits and the plastic kits that have these simple movement with little parts, we thought of that in the same way for the dolls, and not really thinking of it as a doll as so much as thinking of that movement in a robotic or figure-like way. But as we then moved to the larger doll, the Super Dollfie doll, that actually uses these cords, these sort of like elastic cords inside that are used for articulation. And the story behind that choice was that actually Akihiro Enku, who I mentioned before, our sculptor, who was in charge of the design of Super Dollfie, actually the very first doll that he made with those elastic cords was made as a present for his wife, because his wife is a big collector of dolls, and she especially loved those antique dolls that had the elastic cords because she found them easier to use, easier to pose. There's not so many little parts, and that she just in general enjoyed the elastic type. So he, using her preference, made that large doll just for her, and he actually made that out of clay for her as a present. And my mother was speaking to his wife, and she saw how happy she was about this present. She was telling her about how wonderful it was. She was holding it in her arms, and my mother saw the way she was holding it, the way she was so happy about it, and she thought this would be something wonderful to create as Super Dollfie. And so she asked Enku if he could create this doll in resin using the same cord method that he had used for the clay doll for his wife. So that really was the birth of Super Dollfie and why Super Dollfie had those those cords inside for articulation. And this tends to be, we find that this is more popular with our female customers because it tends to have a more human-like sort of posing, and it can do almost all of the poses that a human can do, maybe a bit fewer, but most of them. And it's easier to care for, and there's not so many small parts to exchange. So that's for the Super Dollfie articulation. As for the Dollfie Dream articulation,
こちらはコードとは全く違って体の中にフレームが入っています。で、このフレームがたくさんのジョイントを動かすことによってさまざまなポーズをするんですけど、これはどちらかというと男性向けで、このフレームは人間よりももっとたくさん動きます。人間ではできないようなポーズも彼女たちにこうすることができて、だから男性はどちらかというと戦う、キャラクターが好むので、女の子たちがこう戦う仕草をするとか、甲冑をつけて、彼女たち自身がこう戦士のようなそういったこうキャラクターを表現するとか、このドルフィードリームの発展の中で、半径キャラクターをたくさんこう商品に取り入れていくんですが、それを表現しやすいようにフレームを入れて、ドルフィードリームというのを作る。だから、関節の方法にもたくさんあって、お客様の趣味趣向、取り扱い方によってどれを取り入れるかというのを変える。
So for the Dollfie Dream mechanism, they do not use cords on the inside. They use an actual frame, a stable frame inside them that acts as sort of the joint mechanism for the movement of the dolls. And this actually allows the doll to do inhuman poses, to do more. It is more posable than an actual human body. And we find that these dolls tend to be more popular with male customers who want to reenact, some sort of like fantasy, like fighting pose, or we also do a lot of dolls where we collaborate with copyrighted characters, and these are, fantasy characters that may be doing poses that humans cannot physically do, and this frame system allows them to recreate the poses from the original work in a much better way. So that's why we use this internal frame for these dolls. But we really do have a variety of different types of articulation methods, just depending on the doll and depending on the type of customer, the customer's preference, and how the customer wants to enjoy their doll.
Wow.
もう一回ちょっと説明していただけど、この子たちはドルフィードリームという別のドールシリーズのボディ構造を持ったスーパードルフィーに近いドールなんで、ターゲットがこっちが男性でこっちが女性になっちゃったけど、どういうふうに説明された？
説明します。Sorry, just because it might be a little bit confusing. These dolls that we're referencing here with the joint system, they do have the Dollfie Dream joint system, but these Dollfie icon dolls are specially made to be closer to Super Dollfie with the customized makeup and their faces. So these are sort of in a way like hybrid. This is not representative of the Dollfie Dream, and we don't mean to say that these are only intended for male or female customers.
Right. Okay.
That's just to make sure that we're clear about that.
No problem. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's interesting, because I really didn't even think that you would have so many different type of mechanisms and movements, for different dolls. So I mean, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in that as well. So I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I know Tammy and I and everybody in the doll world is just so excited to be able to spend this time with you and for you to share about what you do and what your company does and what you guys stand for and how you are just doing amazing work and continuing to do amazing work, not just with dolls, but within the community. And we really appreciate that. We really appreciate your time, and we want to thank you for being in the doll world with us. So before we go, just tell everybody where they can find your beautiful dolls at and how they can connect with you. That would be great.
おそらくこのポッドキャストを聞いておられる方は英語圏のお客様なので、 アメリカに限らずですね、さまざまな国の英語圏のお客様なんで、私たちがドールを提供しているといえば、一つは、VOLKS USA という、お店が、アメリカのカリフォルニアにあります。でお店といっても、現在はオンラインストアのみで、実際の、店舗を営業しているわけではないんですが、アメリカ人のスタッフが、ドルフィーをとても深く愛してくれている彼たちがいて、アメリカ、カナダ、それからメキシコのお客様にドルフィーの商品をそこからお届けしています。で、もう一つは、インターナショナルウェブストアというのが私たちのオンラインストアになって、これは英語圏のお客様だけではなくて、日本以外、海外のすべての国のお客様に、お届けをしているオンラインストアです。でこちらには、昨年から、グローバル会員メンバーシップシステムというのがあって、私たちのドールというのは本当に生産数が少なくて、すべての需要にお応えするっていうことがもうなかなかできなくて、たくさんのお客様に、お待ちいただいているという状態なので、このメンバーシップを作ることによって、少しでも本当に欲しいという思われているお客様に、お届けしていくために、今はオンラインストアをしています。
So to answer your question, I'm assuming that most of the listeners of your podcast are people from English-speaking countries, so I'll kind of answer from that point of view. For customers who are living in North America, we have VOLKS USA, which is our North American branch store. I say store, but it's not a physical store at this time. It's online only, but they're operating out of California, and we have American staff there who really love and understand the Dollfie concept and Dollfie products, and would be happy to help any customers who are interested in making their purchases through the VOLKS USA online store. And that is available to customers who are living in Canada, United States, and Mexico. We also have our international online web store, which is the VOLKS web store. And that is available to anyone, no matter where they live worldwide, from Japan to the English-speaking countries to any countries, really. And we have been establishing what we call our GL members, or the global members. It just started last year, but this membership will allow customers to be more likely to be able to get the dolls that they want, because to be honest with you, we really, as I mentioned before, we do produce our dolls in very small lots, and we cannot, the supply is really not meeting the demand, and we cannot bring the dolls to all of the customers who are waiting. And we hope to bring the dolls to as many of those customers, especially those who have been waiting for years or really passionately want to welcome their own Dollfie. So we created this system to try to help those customers welcome the Dollfie that they are hoping for. So those are really the VOLKS USA and then our international VOLKS website store are the two methods I think would be best for your listeners.
Okay, great. And is that volksusa.com? Is that the website, or is that another? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. volksusa.com. Okay, great.
I have,
yes, go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead,
one more question, and that's about contacting you about the ceremony, the welcoming ceremony. How do people contact you about that?
このお迎えセレモニーは日本の国内のみに、その天使の里と、それからそれ他でボークスの店舗のみに行われているので、海外にお住まいのお客様がお迎えセレモニーご希望の方は、まず、日本に来ていただかないといけないというのと、天使の里であれば、海外のお客様が、お問い合わせをいただければ、営業時間やとかお迎えセレモニーができるかということをお答えすることです。
So for the Omukae ceremony, the welcoming ceremony, this is only conducted within Japan in our VOLKS stores and the Tenshi-no-Sato, the doll museum that I mentioned before here in Japan. So for customers who are living overseas, first they actually have to come physically to Japan. But if they are able to do so, we would be happy to receive their reservation through our website. They can go to our Tenshi-no-Sato website or to our official website and make an inquiry about the dates on which they would like to come and find out which days the Doll Museum is open, if there's any openings for the reservation, the times and all of that. So that's limited to Tenshi-no-Sato here in Kyoto, Japan, but that is certainly a possibility if they get in contact with us in advance and are able to travel to Japan.
Okay, no, that's what I was asking. I assumed that they would.
Yes.
It's someone who knows that they're coming and they want to schedule
Yes.
the ceremony. How can, like, if I know Georgette knows she's planning on coming in April, so can she contact you from your VOLKS USA website and ask for the ceremony? Just that's what I'm asking about.
天使の里は会員限定の施設なので、海外のお客様は GL 会員になっておられたら入館をすることができますし、ロジェットさんであれば私に連絡していただいたらご案内します。
So for the ceremony itself, if it's at Tenshi-no-Sato, that is a member, the Doll Museum is a membership only, so they do need to become the global member beforehand. But if they contact us via our official website, and you said VOLKS USA, but they're our North American branch store, they would need to contact the Japan side. So get in contact with our international web store or our Tenshi-no-Sato website. For you personally, Georgette, obviously we would love to welcome you. You can just email me personally. You don't email. You are welcome.
Okay, thank you. Cool. I will do that. Thank you. I want to say thank you to Anne. You've been an amazing interpreter. Honestly, I mean, it's been very easy doing this. And Akari, you've been an amazing person to interview, and I'm so happy to learn your story and to learn a story about your family's company. And again, we are just so grateful that you decided to say yes to the interview, and thank you again so much for being with us on In the Doll World. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.